we'll be taking another dive into a conversation that has also sparked some controversy in the Nigerian space. Since the return of democracy in Nigeria in 1999, the National Assembly has, as part of its oversight function, looked into activities of the ministries, departments, and agencies of government, especially their revenues and expenditure, with a view to ensuring that there is due diligence in the implementations of policies and programs. And it is in this note that the Senate has begun a probe into the payments of over 30 trillion ways and means secured from the Central Bank of Nigeria by the immediate past government in the last 8 years. Subsequently, the Senate has set up an ad hoc committee to carry out a holistic investigation into the matter and report at plenary in 4 weeks at the time of filing this report. The committee is to probe the humongous 30 trillion ways and means which was released as loan to the federal government of Nigeria during the former President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. And therefore, the Senate has constituted a committee to be chaired by the Deputy Senate President, Senator Jibril Barrow of the APC, Kano North, who will preside over that committee. And now, for those who do not know, the ways and means are loans or advances by the Central Bank of Nigeria to the federal government to enable it cater for short-term or emergency finances to fund delayed government expected cash receipts or fiscal deficit. Joining us virtually from Adamawa is Mr. Sunday Amos, a namesake of mine, who is an anti-corruption campaigner who is going to help us dissect this matter and make sense of what we are discussing this morning. Good morning, Mr. Sunday.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I hope Adama, the weather, the heat, if you like, in Adamawa has dropped somewhat.
Yeah, it has not dropped. In fact, it's like hell is leaking somewhere around here. It's so terrible.
Oh my God.
It's terrible.
We hope that the coming days would see some drop in weather and get Nigerians get back their life again. The suffering alone is too much. To have to combine that with this heat wave would just be one too many things at once for the average Nigeria. But we are talking about ways and means this morning, and as we know, this is supposed to be an IOU. Basically, can we quickly get this money and fix this problem because we are expecting some kind of payment, and when they come, we balance out. That was what it was designed for. Noble intention, largely because the central bank was considered the lenders of last resort. But basically what happened with the last administration was that rather than seek for money through the right channels that would ask questions about where they are deploying this money, they rather continue to heap on the ways and means to the extent that they drew up to 27, or rather 23, if you like, because this government took the balance of 7 trillion in the first 6 months, 23 trillion of that money, and as an easy way out, they returned to the National Assembly to get them to do what they called securitization, or convert them into long-term loans of over 40 years. But today, questions are being asked. What exactly did they do with 23 trillion? How did we sit idle and continue to approve this kind of reckless expenditure, or what some other governors describe as printing of money to that tune, the size of our budget, that has today led us into a serious quagmire where we have cash, broad money in circulation nearing 100 trillion. And of course, you know what the inflation numbers are today. Let me have your thoughts on all of what has happened and the impression what you make of the Senate waking up today to want to look back at that expenditure profile.
Well, thank you very much. It's so difficult to talk about these matters. Which Senate are we really talking about? Is it the Senate where Ahmed Lawal was the Senate president for 8 years and is there presently? Are you talking about Ahmed Lawal investigating himself, or the administration of his Oga, where every time Buhari comes, I want to borrow this approved, I want to borrow this approved, I want to borrow this approved. Those senators and those legislators are still there. Is it this Senate or is it this National Assembly? You are asking me whether they are going to probe themselves. which Senate are we really talking about? That of Akpabio? Is it not just yesterday or day before yesterday that Abdul Ningi came out talking about 3 trillion naira padding? So I'm at a loss at which Senate you are really talking about. You are virtually asking me whether what's my opinion about this Senate probing itself. Are we talking about Tinubu probing himself? Because Tinubu happen. It is not going to happen. There seems to be an unwritten law that politicians will not probe themselves. It's like they sit in these chambers to say, look, if we probe those who have gone ahead of us, somebody will also come and probe us. So don't do unto others what you don't want others to do unto you. Don't probe others so that we ourselves will not be probed. So, and by the way, what has come out of all previous probes in this country? Is it the Dasuki probe? Is it the Magu probe? Which probe has yielded any result, my brother? So to summarize my feeling or thought about this latest exercise, it's for us Nigerians to think that something is about to happen. It's for the media. It's for Nigerians to think that anything good is going to come out of this. Nothing is going to come out of it. The committee will finish its work, and by the way, the committee will demand a humongous amount of money for them to carry out their work. At the end of it, they will submit a report to the National Assembly, and it is going to die down, and that is the way it's going to go. Nothing will come out of it.
Okay,
I'm afraid.
I mean, it's safe to say that you not only not have limited expectations, but you have no expectations that something tangible would come out. But what if the presidency or the government says, look at what we're doing with Emefiele, with the prosecutions, to hold him to account for his leadership of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and those are still investigations or prosecutions that are currently ongoing. Isn't that enough sign to show that there is a commitment to, provide some sort of accountability for the people that held sway? I mean, I understand that some of the people that approve those requests are still in the National Assembly or in the Nigerian Senate, but that is not to say that they're all guilty of collusion, so to say, because I get that is what the point you are trying to make. As far as the issues are concerned, isn't this probe a step in the right direction to provide not only transparency and accountability, but to contextualize the issue so that not just the government that is currently in power, but Nigerians understand the scale of this economic quagmire that we're in right now?
Under normal circumstances, a probe is a wonderful thing, and give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Call everybody, ask them questions. Whoever is found guilty goes under the hammer. Under normal circumstances, that would have been the way to go. But we're talking about even the contextualization you're talking about, we're situating it within the historical perspective of the Nigerian legislature or government generally. What has come out of previous investigations? History is on my side in what I'm talking about. What is happening with the Emefiele is the same. Dasuki. What happened to Dasuki? He is off the hook. He's moving around freely. What about Magu, who was accused of looted funds or looting relooted funds? How the English goes, where is he? He's walking the streets. All those that have been accused of corruption in the past, where are they? After all the court drama and DSS this, DSS that, the guy is going to go off the hook. Emefiele is going to go off the hook. Because one of the things about Nigerian politicians is they never chop alone. And the reason why they never chop alone is so that the others will protect them when you are coming to prosecute them. So I agree that there seems to be something happening with Emefiele. But at the end of the day, if Emefiele decides to spill the beans, the Buhari administration is going to go down very big. So, and anything that will touch Buhari now, even Tinubu, I don't think Tinubu can stomach it. So at the end of the day, whatever is going to come out of this investigation, indicting Buhari and all his principal officers, if at the end of the day, that thing is going to touch Tinubu's administration, they will play Tinini Tanana with the whole thing and they will push it under the table and life goes on as usual. So I'm not saying that it is not good to investigate. I'm not saying it is not good to set up a committee. But the point I'm making is, if at the end of the day, recommendations are just put on the shelf and nothing comes out of it, of what use is the investigation, Abdullah? That is exactly just my point. Just waste of resources, waste our time, do the media hype, and nothing comes out of it. And I'm even asking, where is the EFCC in all of this? Where is the ICPC in all of this? Where is the Code of Conduct Bureau? These three anti-corruption agencies that statutorily issues of corruption and anti-corruption resides with them. Where are they? What we have seen in the past is you put stooges in these anti-corruption bodies so that I, the politician, will dictate to you who you should investigate and who you should prosecute, and so on and so forth. But look at the silence of EFCC and the silence of the ICPC in the face of all of these allegations. You know, so the people who are supposed to be doing the work are not doing the work because they are being gagged. And then we are having politicians trying to investigate politicians. Where have you seen politicians investigating politicians and anything good comes out of it? Especially in Nigeria, Abdullah. I may sound very pessimistic, but I'm talking historical contextualization in this matter here. And by the way, which politicians are we even talking about? This one that the sword of illegitimacy is still hanging on them on how they even came to power. So I'm sorry, but we're talking about a National Assembly, a Senate that does not even have the moral authority to even set up this committee to investigate what Buhari has done. They do not have the moral authority to even set up this committee.
If I may,
the moment anybody comes up to try and say anything, they will off his microphone. So what are we talking about in this country?
We have to quit trying altogether and just give up on what needs to be done. I hear you say there is indeed some infractions have been committed. That's no doubt. The size of these infractions are also humongous, clearly from the amount. We have also seen attempt by the AFCC to probe, like we're told. The federal government, through the Ministry of Finance, has mentioned how they are reviewing the whole act of ways and means and hoping to make a correction. Do you think, because of this historical context or antecedents, that we should altogether throw the baby and the bathwater away? Isn't there any redemption point in all of this? Are there nothing we can do differently from how we have done in the time past?
I'm not saying we should quit trying, my brother. How I wish we had an independent EFCC. How I wish we had an independent ICPC, and the CCB, because this is where our salvation lies. How I even wish we had a judiciary, an independent judiciary, because at the end of the day, with the recent past, except unless and until we clean up the ways the EFCC chairman is appointed, clean up the way the ICPC chairman is appointed, and somehow, by whatever divine providence, clean up our judiciary, we have a very hopeless situation. Because at the end of the day, you go left, you go right, you come back to all of these things, all of these bodies, and if you don't have people there who can really stand and do righteous investigation and are bold enough to stand up and declare what is right, we will keep coming to the same thing. I'll give you a very good example very quickly. When Magu was about to be appointed, the DSS wrote a report against him, yet Buhari insisted on appointing him. The National Assembly rejected him 3 times, and Buhari still insisted it had to be Magu. So is it really a surprise at the end of the day what Magu turned out to be? So unless we come out with a system of appointing our anti-corruption czars so that they are not answerable to these politicians, on an INEC chairman, all of these things, we will continue to pander to the interests of politicians. So it may seem as if it is a hopeless situation I am painting. No, and I'm not saying we should quit trying. We will keep trying, but I am thinking that with the present setup, I've been wrong before, and I will be happy to be proved wrong in this time around. But I have historical context backing me up that as long as this setup is what persists, I'm sorry that it will be another exercise in futility.
Right. And in talking about the political will to do the right thing, the Senate President, in his speech while inaugurating the ad hoc committee, said that as far as this issue is concerned, what is at stake is beyond partisan politics, is beyond regional interests, and that they should go after anyone who is culpable, anyone who has questions to answer. Are you suggesting that this is all just posturing, that they're saying things they don't mean in order to fool the public? Is that what you're saying?
That is exactly what I'm saying, Abdullahi. They say action speaks louder than words. If there's anything Nigerian politicians are are well known for, is having two tongues in their mouth. They speak this with one tongue and they speak the other thing with the other tongue. What you are saying is different. You say something and then you unsay the same thing by the things you do. I mean, if only in the last interview, I had to say that I was very disappointed with Abdul Ningi, because if he had all his facts, he should stand his ground. But he didn't do his homework very well, and at the end became a stammerer when he was given opportunity to talk. So Nigerian politicians can say the best things with their mouth, but they can do the worst things with their lives. So I do not believe Fabio. I do not believe what he has said, because what I am seeing them doing is opposite, is stronger, and speaks louder than what I hear them saying with their mouth.
All right, let us go beyond just the probe and maybe speak to the act. Hopefully, we are able to trigger some conscience about the lack of a better word. How do you think, I mean, what's your impression of how the whole concept of ways and means have been badly abused? Because by the legal provisions, or rather constitutional provisions, or by the CBN Act, they were supposed to lend not more than 5% of the size of your previous revenue. You know, I mean, not more than 5% higher than the size of your previous year revenue. That has been smashed, you know, completely by every standard. We are today living with the consequence of oversupply of money in our system, or the size of inflation and all of that. Even if this would amount to nothing, what would you be saying, for instance, to a different CBN governor on the saddle today on how not to run the central bank, especially when it comes to, you know, meeting every single demand of the federal government when they come calling? By the way, you are referred to as the lenders of resources. So how do you stand your grounds to say, as much as it looks like this is the easy thing to do, this is the long-term consequence? We should look for alternative and innovative ways of solving this problem rather than just pump money at just about every problem we have.
I'm not a financial expert. The only thing I'll be good at is when you give me money to spend. But that's on a lighter note. Let me tell you something, my brother. How and why we're here today, Buhari is not under lock and key. It baffles me. With the way Muhammadu Buhari destroyed Nigeria, how the man is not presently locked up baffles me. You know, and for me, it speaks to exactly the same things that we're talking about. United States of America, every time we're giving examples or we're copying from and so forth. The way their systems go, the way their systems work, you cannot dictate to a central bank governor what he knows to be the wrong thing to do. Donald Trump, as president of the United States, could not talk to a state attorney general to do what that attorney general felt was wrong, because there are systems in place that protect such people. How could you be a central bank governor and play to the whims and caprices of a president? So the same argument I am making about the appointment of an EFCC chair or an ICPC chair or an INEC chair goes to the same thing about the central bank governor. Now we're talking about Yemi Cardoso, or what is his name? We know where he's coming from. He's a Tinubu boy. At the end of the day, with all his professionalism and coming from a commercial background, and where we are told that the central bank is not supposed to be run like a commercial bank. Now, if, for example, at any point in time, Tinubu snaps his finger for Yemi Cardoso, do you think Yemi Cardoso has the balls not to toe the line of Tinubu? That is exactly the kind of thing we are talking about. Or a Supreme Court judge or a High Court judge. By the time you are not qualified, or even when you are qualified, but there are many people who are qualified, but you are appointed by a particular person, then the next thing is to pander to their interests. That's our principal problem in this country. We do not have independent, very bold public servants who know what is right, who know the books and stand by the books, no matter whose ox is God. We do not have such characters in place in our system. We always seem to pander towards the interests of those our principals who appointed us. So ideally, if Cardoso is a professional and the books are there and he knows what he's supposed to do, and I expect that by now there should have been a turnaround. So for me, as poor as I am, as far as financial issues are concerned, as a layman, I may not be able to speak to the issues the way they are, but I am thinking that we are still where we are simply because we have politicians appointing other politicians to pander to their own interests. And I'm afraid that as we continue like that, perhaps it will be a long way up before we see any tangible positive results.
Right. The Uncle Boros scheme, which was also principally run by the CBN under MFLA, is also, under the radar or on the radar of this particular ad hoc committee to look into some of the infractions, the irregularities, the mismanagement of some of these public funds. Do you think the Tinubu administration is trying to set the bar for its own operations to say, for instance, that, listen, this is where the Buhari administration went wrong, even though it does not look like they're outrightly going to come after, go after his predecessor. We understand that there's a back and forth between the former ministers of the Buhari administration and the current government vis-a-vis the current economic climate in the country. Do you think that the Tinubu administration, the way it's set up, the way it's operating so far, is trying to live above board to say that, listen, we are well aware of the mistakes of the past and we're not trying to repeat it with what it is doing right now through its economic reforms and policies?
Well, I've always averred that one of the greatest losses in the fight against corruption is the loss of public support. Our greatest allies in the fight against corruption is the public. But the Nigerian politician has used poverty as a weapon against the Nigerian public, so much so that today nobody is talking about anything but how to survive. Each day you wake up, what do I eat? What do I drink? How do I pay rent, send my children to school, and so on and so forth. And if the Tinubu administration wants to be seen in a positive light in terms of addressing the wrongs of the past, one of the ways we can do that is to first and foremost empower the public. The policies of this administration must first and foremost empower the public so that we are not talking about what to eat or what to drink. As it is now, we are still talking about our masses stopping trucks and looting bags of maize and rice and indomie and so on and so forth. Apart from this, if we want to begin to take piecemeal this program, that program, uncle borrower, school feeding program, this and that, we all know that these are all cesspools of corruption. Apart from the uncle borrowers, take even the school feeding program that even during the lockdown, this nonsense lady was still saying they were still feeding children, even during the lockdown.
Mr. Sunday,
so the same thing is with the uncle borrowers. There's been a massive corruption in the system. And
Mr. Sunday Amos, I'm going to have to insist that you take back the nonsense lady, because it's a language that we do not want to promote on air. So if you can kindly just retract and go back to making your point, please.
I take back the nonsense. Let me replace the nonsense with the nice lady. Okay. I take back the nonsense. I apologize.
Thank you very much. For being
I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that.
But
the point I'm trying to make is that When you even come out on there and say during the lockdown that the school feeding
I'm
is
afraid we have
going.
to anchor at this point. I want to thank you very much for your invaluable contributions. We to this program, as always, we have been talking with Mr. Sunday Amos, who is an anti-corruption campaigner, who's joined us via Zoom from the city of Yola in Adamawa State.